Hello you fine ladies and gentlemen, how are you all doing? I hope your day is going well. Today we're going to figure out which trait card after the Death Star update is the best to use in Star Wars Battlefront. Now, if you've read the most recent patch notes for the update that came alongside the Death Star DLC, you may have seen that the trait cards, or at least many of them, were completely changed around, which of course means that the trait cards, which were once known as the best, may have lost that title. So today we're going to review all the trait cards and determine which one is the best to use. Let's start off with the Berserker trait, which in my opinion was probably the best overall trait card before the Death Star update. However, it's been changed quite a bit. With level 1 of the trait, you gain a 15% bonus to hipfire damage, level 2 grants a 25% bonus, and level 3 provides a 50% bonus damage to hipfire. So although you no longer have to be under a certain health for the bonus damage to kick in, it's pretty clear that this trait has been nerfed quite a bit. There is no longer that 50% damage resistance with level 3 of the trait, which I think is what made this trait so fantastic to use. Though the trait does still seem quite effective, as a 50% bonus to hipfire damage is very powerful. So let's move on to the next trait, which is the Bounty Hunter trait, which has also been completely flipped around. No longer does this trait award power-ups with each kill, instead it reduces the time between cooldowns on your star cards. Now, I'm not going to go into all the percentages with the cooldowns and damage bonuses with every single trait card because that would take a while and that's a lot of numbers to take in, but instead I'm just going to talk about their basic overall abilities and how good they are to use. So with the Bounty Hunter trait, if you like using your star cards and they provide you with many advantageous situations and effects with your loadout, then this trait is probably really good for you because you can use those star cards so much more often, and that is of course really useful if they do really benefit the loadout you're using. Otherwise, this trait just does not hold up to some of the other ones, which is unfortunate because the old Bounty Hunter trait was actually really good. So now let's get on to the Sharpshooter trait, which I don't think anyone really used before. I didn't even have it purchased. However, the Sharpshooter trait is basically now a mirror image of the Berserker trait, except instead of hipfire bonus damage, it is bonus damage while zoomed in and aiming down sights. So if you're someone that really likes to aim down sights a lot, then this is probably the trait for you, especially if you're using a blaster which is more suited for long range and you have to use your sights. Then this is actually a really good trait because of course at level 3 it does grant a 50% bonus damage when zoomed in, so that is actually really good and very effective on the battlefield if you're good at ADSing. Now let's move on to the Scout trait, which has been changed quite a bit, although not as drastically as some of the others. Now at rank 1 you will not appear on the minimap when you shoot your blaster, and then at rank 2 you will not appear if you sprint. So those two are the same as the vanilla version of Scout trait, except they've been flipped around. I guess DICE thought it would be better and more suited to gameplay that way. So that's not a terrible decision really. It makes sense, but it does actually change the effectiveness of the trait quite a bit because of course not showing up when sprinting is actually really useful, and now you can't get that until level 2. Now with level 3, that's what's really been changed around. At level 3, you now jam enemy radars. They cannot use their radars. They cannot even see your teammates on the radars, or their teammates for that matter. And that is only in a certain radius around you. So it's not going to be like every single enemy on the battlefield has their radars jammed. Although if they are close to you, it will jam their radar. So that is actually really effective and does go quite well with the Scout trait. Now let's go on to the Bodyguard trait. Now the Bodyguard trait has also been changed. Instead of explosive damage immunity, now it grants just bonus resistance against all types of damage. So that is actually really good because at level 3 you have a 50% damage resistance, same as the Berserker trait at level 3 when it was in its vanilla state. So that is actually really useful and effective, especially in the new Death Star DLC, where there's just lots of enemies in every direction, and it's really important to keep up your trait, keep it leveling, keep up kill streaks, and not die really quickly. So that is definitely a very effective trait. Now on to the second last trait, which is the Survivalist trait. This has really not been changed too much, although the cooldowns are pretty much the same on health regeneration. At level 3, it'll be a 2-second cooldown until your health can regenerate after taking damage. And then secondly, it's also been nerfed kind of because you no longer receive a health boost on kills, and you used to get that with level 3 of the Survivalist trait. With each kill, you would regen some health, which was actually really useful. You no longer get that, so I would say that has been nerfed slightly. Now on to the last trait, which is the Escape Artist trait, which is the trait that has been most recently added. It's not been changed too much, although it has been nerfed a little bit. You no longer go as fast with rank level 3, I believe. And also there are no more lethal melee, so no more one-hit melee kills at level 3. So now let's get into which trait card is the best to use. And I guess I'll be kind of quick with this, but in my opinion, I would say there are a few scenarios where you would like to use different trait cards. If you're someone that uses star cards a lot and they really benefit your style of gameplay, then clearly Bounty Hunter trait is probably going to be the best because it allows you to use those so much more frequently, and that is really useful. Although I know there's not too many loadouts out there where the star cards really benefit that much. Now, Berserker trait is also really useful as well as Sharpshooter, depending on if you prefer to fire from the hip or ADS. I prefer firing from the hip always, but those two traits are kind of go just hand in hand, and so those are really useful. Although more than bonus damage, I would say bonus damage resistance is more important, and that is why I would say the Bodyguard trait is the best trait post Death Star patch, because it has really formed into this amazing trait, because having 50% damage resistance but still having a blaster that deals adequate damage is really crucial, because that will allow you to keep that trait up longer and go on kill streaks longer and help your team out more and invade different enemy points and allow you to take that over, because you can tank so much more damage. And I think that's really helpful, especially with something like a back-to-bomb or adrenaline stim by your side. You can really tank damage and become a one-man army on the battlefield, which is why I definitely say the Bodyguard trait is, in my opinion, the best trait after the Death Star patch. So that is all for today. If you have a different opinion, please put it in the comments down below. Let me know. And as always, I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.